It's time. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for the delay. It is Sabres hockey, as you can see. We're jumping on the wagon here. Buffalo Sabres hockey. Playoffs for the first time in like 15 years. Second round against the Montreal Canadiens. Tough game today. Thank you for joining me for the Front Office podcast. I am your host, Pistols. We are here another week. Today, we continue on with our tier lists. Today is the wide receivers. We talk about the wide receivers and we break down the tiers. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be a long episode. I apologize for the length of it, but it's my show, so I don't care. Let's get into it. Tier 1. We're going to start there, obviously. But, I mean, most managers will draft wide receivers based on talent, right? And that's just, I mean, that's not a bad way to draft, unless, of course, you want to lose your league. This isn't a ranking system. You know, it's a tier list. This tier list, it breaks down the wide receivers and the opportunity that is presented to each one. The ones that control the target share, the ones that control the offense, those are the ones that you want to draft. I know we have our round one guys, blah, blah, blah. And we're going to get into that. Again, starting with tier 1. Tier 1 are our offensive centers. These are the guys that the offense runs through no matter what. Regardless of the running back situation, the tight end situation, the quarterback situation, it doesn't matter. I only have 3 names in tier 1. Let me know if you agree, disagree, whatever you want to call it. Tier 1, I have Ja'Marr Chase, I have Puka Nacua, and I have Jackson Smith in Jigba. Ja'Marr Chase, he's an interesting one because, you know, I have definitely shit on the Bengals offense. The Cincinnati Bengals have the most boring offense in the league. But Ja'Marr Chase is truly the number one receiver there. He's also matchup proof. He is quarterback proof. We saw Joe Burrow get hurt. We saw Joe Flacco come in and take over via trade. Ja'Marr Chase is just one of those guys where he's going to get 10 to 15 targets per game. He's going to make the best of what he can with those targets. A lot of the times it is 100, plus yards per game. He's that guy to me that really is truly the number one guy. He's been probably the number one receiver in the league for a very long time, despite some other guys kind of creeping up on him. But Ja'Marr Chase he's just matchup proof. No matter who is throwing the ball, their offense is built around him. It's one of those things where they may not win many games. They didn't make the playoffs last year, this and that. But the offense revolves around Ja'Marr Chase. Wherever he is on the field, you can almost guarantee a target. He's going to get behind the defense. He's going to make those big plays. He's just a guy that really has no weaknesses. Regardless of the Cincinnati offense, whether Joe Burrow's back there or whoever they have at quarterback that week. My next guy, like I said, Puka Nacua. It's a very high-powered offense in the Rams. Matt Stafford, we saw 4,500 plus yards, like 40-something touchdowns. Won the MVP last year. Puka Nacua is a guy, again, that is also matchup proof. You can guarantee that he's going to get 10 to 15 targets. He's probably going to have 10 to 15 catches. He's a guy that comes into the league not really knowing too much about him. You know, he's been one of the most consistent wide receivers in the league, regardless of the injury that he had the previous year. Kind of held him under 1,000 yards, but last year he dominated as usual. Puka Nacua, regardless of who they have on offense, he's going to be the driving force of that offense. He is the centerpiece, and we know that Matthew Stafford is coming back for one more year, at least one more year. So we have Puka Nacua in the tier 1 list, and it's really unmatched. Yes, I know they have Davante Adams. I know that he scored more touchdowns, but not by much. Puka Nacua had 10 touchdowns last year. Davante Adams had 14. He still gets his red zone targets. His share in the red zone is incredible. I look for Puka Nacua to be a centerpiece of the Rams offense. I know they have a really good team around them, a high-powered offense, and again, Matthew Stafford doesn't win the MVP of the league without him. Regardless of I know that 10 touchdowns to 14 touchdowns, you're probably thinking, oh, Davante Adams was better. He really wasn't. Puka Nacua is a very complete athlete. He's a big bodied guy. He can burn down the field. He can make the contested catch. Their offense revolves around Nacua. The last guy I have on there, JSN, Jackson Smith-Njigba, he was the center point of the offense for the Seahawks. He didn't do a whole lot in the playoffs. I understand that, but now that they lost Ken Walker in the backfield, Zach Charbonnet is kind of coming off the injury. Sam Darnold's still there. They have Rashid Shaheed, whatever. JSN is the focal point of that offense. He's the number one superstar on that league, or on that team in the league. We saw him lead all wide receivers last year, but we're not ranking him based on last year's stats. We're ranking him on the opportunity that has presented itself to him, and that opportunity is unmatched. He's their number one. They lose Ken Walker. That offense is going to revolve around him. I expect big numbers from JSN again, and those are my three tier 1 guys. You may agree to disagree, but I feel like tier 1 is that category that there's a lot of guys that borderline tier 1. But these 3 guys that I have in here, Ja'Marr Chase, Puka Nacua, JSN, they really kind of paved the way for the wide receiver position. Tier 2, we're going to move right along. Tier 2, a lot of names in this list. Tier 2 are our target drivers. These are the guys that, yes, they're going to have a large target share, but the offense doesn't necessarily revolve around them. There's a lot of moving pieces in each offensive scheme when it comes to these guys. Your tier 2 guys, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, I have in here, Malik Nabers, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nico Collins, Drake London, George Pickens, Rashee Rice, Ted McMillan, Davante Adams. Now, we saw Justin Jefferson struggle a little bit with the quarterback situation in Minnesota. We saw them sign Kyler Murray to a contract, who, in my opinion, is probably their starting quarterback. It adds another element to the quarterback position in Kyler Murray's ability to run outside the pocket. But last year we saw Justin Jefferson really struggle with poor quarterback play. We're hoping that he kind of gets back on track with being the number 1 wide receiver in the league. I know last year, if you didn't pay attention to the quarterback situation and you drafted Justin Jefferson in the first round, you were very disappointed with the lack of fantasy points that he produced. you know, with Kyler Murray there, it adds another element, like I said. So teams are going to have to keep an eye on Kyler Murray. He has a great arm. He has the accuracy. With him being in Minnesota now, Justin Jefferson should be back up into the wide receiver 1 category, but that's kind of the reason why I dropped him down to tier 2. CeeDee Lamb I see in tier 2 because he's a borderline tier 1 guy. We know the talent that he has. We know that the offense kind of started to revolve around him, but the reason I have George Pickens in tier 2 as well is because we saw George Pickens kind of take over that wide receiver 1 role in Dallas. He's a guy that stayed healthy, didn't have any injuries to deal with last year. CeeDee Lamb had some ankle stuff that he was worried about, or hamstring or whatever it might be, lower body injuries. But George Pickens can really be the focal point of this offense, which is why I dropped CeeDee Lamb into tier 2, and I keep George Pickens in tier 2 as well for that reason. Dak Prescott is a fantastic quarterback, and he's a very reliable guy in Dallas. They like him. He can throw the ball. He could run the ball. Thing with Dak Prescott is he has to stay healthy. And of course that's the notion with a lot of these guys in the league. They all have to stay healthy. But I put CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens in tier 2, borderline tier 1, because we saw Pickens just kind of take over that offense. And he's come out and said, how does it feel to be behind CeeDee Lamb in the wide receiver room in Dallas? And it was I'm not behind anybody, 1A 1B type of situation. But we saw George Pickens really explode in the Dallas offense. I put Malik Neighbors here because they lose Wan'Dale Robinson. They still have Darius Slayton and company, but they have a rookie quarterback last year in Jackson Dart, who played very, very well. Saw some injuries late in the season, kind of the concussion thing. He's still with the growing pains of a rookie quarterback. Now he's going into year 2. They have a new head coach. He should really be able to take control of this offense. We saw Scatterbo get injured late in the season, so he'll be recovering from that ankle injury. But Malik Neighbors fits into tier 2 because he is a target driver. He is the guy that the quarterback, Jackson Dart, is going to get the ball to, whether they force it, whether they just scheme him open, whatever the case may be, he's going to get his own. I put Amon-Ra St. Brown here in tier 2 because the inconsistency is the inconsistency of the Lions offense. They run, they throw, but Jared Goff is ultimately the factor in the whole Lions offensive scheme. If he's good, it's great. We're going to see Amon-Ra thrive. He's going to get his 10 to 12 targets a game. If he's off, we're going to see them really struggle. I know they kind of run the ball through Jahmyr Gibbs, but the Lions offense under Dan Campbell have been very, very explosive. We're going to see Amon-Ra really get his targets, really get his possessions and everything under his belt. We're always going to see that. I put Nico Collins here as well, Texans quarterback. We really need to see CJ Stroud kind of take control of the Houston Texans offense. Nico Collins is a guy that dominates the red zone. Okay. He's a guy, he's really the only receiver that they have. They have Nico Collins, they have Jaden Higgins, whatever you want to call it, Xavier Hutchinson. But Nico Collins is the driving force of that offense. We saw David Montgomery go down there from Detroit. He gets the starting position. naturally. It's just one of those things that is going to happen. But Nico Collins to me is a guy that could really, really produce in an offense that really needs to be controlled by the quarterback. And CJ Stroud, we saw some really, really good flashes from him. And in his year 5 needs to be the one where he just takes a stranglehold on that offense. He needs to be able to control it, and he needs to control it through Nico Collins. He's a massive, massive human being. He's got great red zone ability. And Nico Collins is going to be the one to drive that offense. Now, the offense is not going to run through him, as I said. It's going to be a CJ Stroud-led offense, as it should be. And we know that CJ Stroud has been in the league for a long time. But this is the year that he needs to take the bull by the horns and just make it his own. He needs to be able to get Nico Collins the ball. We're looking at like 10 to 12 targets per game. Whether he catches that many balls, it depends on the quarterback play. But Nico Collins is a guy that is really going to make or break this offense. Drake London. We have Drake London in the tier 3 position because we really saw the Atlanta offense kind of run through him a little bit. I know they have Bijan Robinson, so that is going to eat a lot of his ball possession time. But Drake London is a big body guy. He can make the contested catch. He's got really his only other competition is Kyle Pitts. But in my opinion, the Atlanta offense runs Bijan Robinson, and then we have Drake London, and then we have Kyle Pitts. Now there's a quarterback controversy in Atlanta. They have Michael Penix coming off of an MCL injury or ACL or whatever ligament he tore in his knee during the season. But this is an offense that is going to only prosper when they get Drake London the ball. He's a guy that needs to be targeted early and often. I'm very confident in saying that the 10 to 15 targets per game is well within his reach. He's a guy that just is going to really prosper. And if Tua Tagovailoa wins the QB competition there, we know Tua is a pretty good quarterback. I know he's one concussion away from being retired in the league, but he gets a fresh start in Atlanta. He should have no problem winning the QB competition, and of course we're going to get to Tua when we get to our QB tiers. But for the most part, Drake London is a really solid focal point of a young Atlanta offense. The next guy I have on my list, I already talked about George Pickens, but Rashee Rice. I have Rashee Rice on here because I know we saw him get in trouble in the offseason. He served his 11-game suspension. But with Patrick Mahomes coming off of his late ACL, MCL injury, the Kansas City Chiefs are really going to need him to step up in a big, big way. Now, with Rashee Rice, he's in an offense with an aging Travis Kelce and Xavier Worthy. They brought over Ken Walker from the Seahawks, and Mahomes coming off injury. So they're going to roll with Justin Fields until Mahomes is ready to go. But Rashee Rice in that offense, and guys in a high-powered offense like the Chiefs, they have Andy Reid calling the shots. Rashee Rice is going to get his. He's going to be his 10, 12 target a game guy. But it's really hard for me to put some of these guys into tier 1 because the offense really doesn't revolve around the wide receiver position. Like I said, they bring over Ken Walker, and Ken Walker is a fully capable running back who can carry a full workload as long as he stays healthy. but Rashee Rice on the outside or in the slot or wherever they line him up, he is a problem. He is going to be a guy that they're going to force feed the football to. The next guy I have on here, Tet McMillan. We saw him win Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year for the Carolina Panthers. This might be one of the more controversial picks that I put in tier 2 here. He has the ability to be a very explosive wide receiver. Bryce Young, we saw, kind of took back his offense, and later in the season they were fighting for a playoff spot. Tet McMillan was a guy that he relied heavily on. We could see his 10 to 15 targets per game. The running situation is a little bit different now that they let go of Rico Dowdle. They still have Chuba Hubbard. I can't remember their backup. He was hurt anyway, so it doesn't matter. But Tet McMillan could really be the focal point of this offense as long as Bryce Young has his head in the game. We saw him throw like 10 touchdowns in like 2 games, which is crazy for a quarterback. You don't really see that. But Tet McMillan just has that dog in him to really control the offense for the Carolina Panthers. The last guy I have in here is Davante Adams, and I put him in tier 2 because without Davante Adams, Puka Nacua can't be as great as he is, and without Puka Nacua, Davante Adams can't be as great as he is. Now, you might argue that Davante Adams is probably too high, but the Rams offense runs through those 2 guys. Matthew Stafford, there was a reason why he was the MVP last year. He threw the ball a ton. I don't expect that to change whatsoever. They're going to continue to rotate Kyren Williams and Blake Corum, but you're going to have your guys Puka Nacua, Davante Adams as your wide receivers, and Davante Adams is going to continue to dominate the red zone like he has been, like he did last year. He scored 14 touchdowns last year, and a lot of them were red zone targets. So for me, with tier 2, Davante Adams definitely fits this. He's a borderline. Some might argue that he's a borderline tier 3 guy. Maybe he's kind of forgotten about. He's aging. But the LA Rams offense is really going to strive, and they're going to thrive along the backs of those 2 guys, as long as Matt Stafford can stay healthy, which we know he's been dealing with his back injuries and his chest injuries and whatever other injuries that he has for being an aging quarterback in the league. But Davante Adams is a tier 2 guy, solely based on the fact that he is a red zone machine. He scored 14 touchdowns last year. And anything lower than that, anything lower than tier 2, really just didn't seem fair to him. But yeah, so in tier 2 we have Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Malik Neighbors, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nico Collins, Drake London, George Pickens, Rashee Rice, Tet McMillan, Davante Adams. Now I'm going to spend a lot of time on tier 3 here, because tier 3 they're my volatility stars. Okay. And what I mean by volatility is these are the guys that either are going to make or break your fantasy team. The floors are really high. The ceilings are even higher. And you're very happy with these guys if they give you, a mediocre performance. I'm going to read through the list, and then we're going to talk about each one. I have A.J. Brown, Chris Olave, Jameson Williams, Garrett Wilson, Terry McLaurin, Cortland Sutton, Jalen Waddle, Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnston, Emeka Egbuka, Brian Thomas Jr., Marvin Harrison Jr., DJ Moore, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman Jr., Jaden Higgins, T. Higgins, Alec Pierce, Rome Odunze, Luther Burden, Calvin Ridley, Xavier Worthy, Josh Downs. Now, that's a long list, but there are a lot of wide receivers in the league. I won't talk about every single one of these guys, but I'll kind of give you the premise on why I chose these guys for tier 3, with being a volatility star. The reason I put AJ Brown here is because obviously we're speculating a trade from the Eagles to the Patriots or whatever the case may be. There is trade rumors that AJ Brown is being traded, but the reason I put him in the volatility stars category in the tier 3 as opposed to like tier 1 or tier 2 is because the Eagles have an identity, and their identity is run the ball, whether it's with Jalen Hurts or Saquon Barkley. That is just kind of the way that they operate their offense. Now, AJ Brown is a very vocal wide receiver. We've seen him come out and interview, and yes, the Eagles won a ton of games last year, but he was still talking to the media saying that he needs to be involved more. He wants the ball more, which is why I put him in tier 3, and it could be a very volatile situation in Philadelphia, because he's either going to get the ball and be happy, or he's not going to get the ball. The Eagles are going to win and he's still not going to be happy. You can't make everybody happy in the NFL, right? His counterpart, Devonta Smith, we see kind of up and down, and we'll get to him in the later tiers. But as far as AJ Brown goes, because he has come out publicly, because he has been part of those interviews that he talks about wanting the ball more, regardless of the Eagles winning the game, it's one of those things where that is not good for an offense. It creates a lot of animosity. It creates a lot of the diva status when it comes to wide receivers that, regardless of winning, they still want more. But AJ Brown is a very, very good wide receiver. We saw him hit like 1,200 yards last year, but it didn't come easy. It was a lot of 70, 80-yard games until he was making a big scene to the media that he wanted the ball more. So AJ Brown sits in my tier 3 of my volatility guy, and I know we're pending a trade, and the speculation is that he's going to the Patriots, but for the meantime, he sits in tier 3. Chris Olave sits in the volatility gains because it all depends on how the quarterback play is. Now, we saw the Saints draft Jordan Tyson, wide receiver, but we saw Chris Olave really kind of take control of the offense. We have an aging Alvin Kamara. They signed Travis Etienne to back him up, so they're going to be in a split there. Defenses still have to account for both of those guys who can very easily take control of an offense. But Chris Olave, we saw him have a massive uptick in targets, and his targets increased towards the end of the season there. We saw him stay healthy, and that's really the biggest key, and to why I put him in the volatility stars tier 3 here on the Front Office Podcast. Chris Olave just really needs everything to go right for him. He needs really good quarterback play. He's one of those guys that can take control of the game. As long as we see a pretty decent quarterback play from Tyler Shuck, who is their starter, Chris Olave should strive. But it's going to be one of those things to where if it's a game flow thing, they're going to see them throw a lot, so the targets are going to be there regardless. But Chris Olave really he's truly a boomer bust guy. I'd be happy with him in my flex spot, in my wide receiver 2, my flex spot, one of those 2 positions on my team. But yeah, for the most part, Chris Olave sits in tier 3. I have Garrett Wilson here as well because the Jets are just bad. They have two really good players, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson. The passing game is going to revolve around Garrett Wilson. He is a fantastic product of Ohio State. I know I talked about it a couple episodes ago that Ohio State produces really good wide receivers, but Garrett Wilson is one of those guys where the spectacular catch ability is there. We've seen him one hand so many different balls in the end zone. He's a clutch guy when it comes to third down, but it's the offensive scheme that worries me about Garrett Wilson, which is why he's not higher. And I could have put him lower on the tier list, but I feel like a volatility star in tier 3 is much more suitable because he is going to be a boomer bust guy. He's going to be the guy that Geno Smith either relies heavily on or doesn't rely on at all. I also put Jameson Williams here from the Lions because his big play ability gives him the boomer bust aspect of being a wide receiver in the league. We know that Amon-Ra is in the tier 2 class. He's your focal point of the offense. But your Jameson Williams, he has the ability to beat defense deep. But the problem that I have with Jameson Williams is, yes, I would like to have him on my team, but he's either going to be a 3-catch, 150-yard guy or a 0-catch, 0 yards, whatever you want to call it. He's not going to get you that high target volume game, but his big play ability kind of makes it a little bit easier for you to go, okay, this guy can really get me some points in fantasy football. His floor is very high, but his ceiling is kind of along the same level of his floor. He's either, like I said, he's either going to give you that 3-catch for 130, 150 yard with a touchdown, or he's going to give you 7 catches for 60 yards, which is still pretty decent points, but every week is going to be different with him. They're going to look to Amon-Ra first. Jameson Williams kind of that second option, and that really kind of captures the whole volatility stars tier in tier 3 here, where these guys they have all the talent, they have the capability to be great, but we're going to look at what the game flow is. Is he going to get you that 150-yard game, or is he going to get you that 60-yard game? The next I have on here is Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin is a guy, beautiful product out of Ohio State. Again, they produce some of the greatest wide receivers in the league, but he's really the focal point of the offense now that Deebo Samuel is a free agent and they don't have any running backs behind him, and Jaden Daniels coming off the injury. But the Washington Commanders is kind of one of those teams where I think people got a little bit of a taste of what they could be with Jaden Daniels' rookie year, but not really fully understanding that they're not as good as people, as they may have seemed. But Terry McLaurin is going to be a boomer bust guy. We saw him kind of really take control of the Commanders' offense, but it's one of those situations where if Jaden Daniels can stay healthy, then the Washington Commanders are going to be fine. But it's also a situation to where I think they may be a little bit overrated because of Jaden Daniels. Having only one wide receiver is really tough on an offense because the defense really just has to focus on them. And that makes for a really tough time for the team as a whole. There's a ton of guys on this list. Like I said, I'm not going to go through each and every one of them. A combo that I have is Courtland Sutton and Jalen Waddle. I have them both in tier 3 because the Broncos offense as a whole is boomer bust. Cortland Sutton, Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle's the speed. Cortland Sutton's the possession. And with the inconsistency of Bo Nix, and now that he's coming off the injury that he suffered in the playoffs against the Bills, of course, the Bills lost that game. They had to rely on Jarrett Stidham. But it's going to be one or the other. Drafting those guys, they're great flex position guys. In my tier 3 list here, these guys are... It is going to be one or the other. You're either going to get a really good game out of Cortland Sutton, you're going to get a really good game out of Jalen Waddle, and that just drives fantasy managers crazy, because not knowing what week whatever player is going to get the ball is just infuriating. So I put them both here. And again, I put the other combo that I put DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman. Now, and I put them in volatility stars because with Aaron Rodgers, I'm so sorry. I don't know. I was muted there. I don't know what we heard, what we didn't hear. But anyway, I'm talking about Alec Pierce here being he's a big threat, big play threat guy. We saw him beat some defenses deep. We don't know when Daniel Jones is coming back from his injury, if that's going to be the focal point of the offense, because we know that they have Jonathan Taylor, who will probably just become their offense, along with Daniel Jones recovering from that injury. So we see Alec Pierce on the tier 3 list. Just in case I may have been muted there, I was talking about Xavier Worthy being a big play guy. He's a guy that is going to get you 3-4 catches for 100 plus yards. The volatility there is he's a big play threat guy with, with the speed that he has. Man, I wish I would have thought that I was on mute for a little bit there. I put Josh Downs on here as well, along to kind of pair with Alec Pierce, because Josh Downs we saw have some really good deep play ability throughout the season, but hopefully that takes away some pressure from Alec Pierce. But two guys that are kind of both on the big play threat radar may not work out well for an offense. So it'll be interesting to see where they kind of coincide there. But we're gonna move on to tier 4. Tier 4, I have as my chain movers. These are my guys that I'm very comfortable with. These guys have a very safe floor. They have a very safe production output for fantasy football. We're going with Ladd McConkey. This might be controversial, but I have Mike Evans here, Jordan Addison, Juwan Jennings, Jerry Jeudy, Jacoby Myers, Donna Mooney, Khalil Shakir, Jalen Naylor, Keenan Allen, Cooper Kupp, Rashid Shaheed, Wan'Dale Robinson, Michael Wilson. Now, Ladd McConkey I put on this list as a chain mover because we saw a pretty big decline from rookie year to second year. Now he's going into third year behind Quentin Johnston, who's their number one. And I don't even think I have Quentin Johnston on my tier list. He'd probably fall in between a tier 3 and a tier 4. So probably a tier 3 guy. He's their number one. He's had some drop issues in the past, but he's the guy that could really shine in the Chargers offense. But I put Ladd McConkey in tier 4 as a chain mover because he's a really good slot receiver. He's got great hands. He's got great route running ability. But like I said, we saw him really decline from year 1 to year 2. In year 2, he was not the focal point of the offense, and we saw them draft Omarion Hampton, who kind of took over that role. I know he got hurt during the season, but Ladd McConkey lands in tier 4. His floor is high, his ceiling is low, which kind of fits the bill for the chain mover tier here. The reason I put Mike Evans here, now people are gonna probably fight me on Mike Evans being in tier 4, but he's on a new team. Okay, he's aging. We saw him get injured last season and kind of derailed the 1,000-yard year. The 1,000-yard receiving year streak kind of came to an end last year with the injuries. But he's up there in age. Now, he is the number 1 receiver on the San Francisco 49ers. But we see Brock Purdy get hurt year after year. And we see that the 49ers offense, regardless of who's at quarterback, run through Christian McCaffrey. Okay. So having the ability that Christian McCaffrey has, and being a running back, being heavily targeted in the passing game, this makes me kind of cautious about Mike Evans and drafting him this year, because that tier 4 status, that chain mover guy, I have no doubt in my mind that Mike Evans is going to be able to get you a first down wherever you are on the field. Now, having said that, they don't have really anybody else to throw to. Now, we're going to talk about Ricky Pearsall. We're going to talk about Brandon Ayuk a little bit. But for the most part, their offense runs through Christian McCaffrey, and they still have George Kittle at tight end. But Brock Purdy is ultimately the factor that comes down to the meat of the, the meat of the bone, or whatever you want to call it. Or fact of the matter is their offense runs through the running back. Their offense runs through tight end position. Mike Evans just kind of there to see what else he can do outside of Tampa Bay. I think he's going to have a great season, but he is in my chain movers tier 4 system that he's not going to get you that 1,000 yards. I'd be really, really shocked if he does. I'm hoping that he can stay healthy so that he can continue to move on to the 1,000-yard receiving guy. But an offense that runs through a certain position, in the 49ers case, the running back position, they kind of focus on that. They focus on the tight end position, and then Mike Evans is kind of there. So the reason I put Jordan Addison and Juwan Jennings on this list is because Juwan Jennings just signed a contract with the Minnesota Vikings. Now, Jordan Addison obviously sits behind Justin Jefferson, and now Juwan Jennings also does. So these two guys are going to be competing for the secondary targets. We're going to see Justin Jefferson get his targets, 10 to 15 targets a game. And then it's really going to be a split between Addison and Jennings. Jennings is a very good possession receiver. I can see him, being relied on third downs and to get, that first down that team needs. Jordan Addison, we saw have some off the field issues, which saw him get suspended for 3 games last year, but came back and kind of solidified his secondary wide receiver role in that offense. Now that with Kyler Murray there, it's going to be Justin Jefferson, and then really it's just going to be a crapshoot between the two, Jordan Addison and Juwan Jennings. I put Jerry Jeudy in here because the Browns are just the Browns. They have a massive quarterback competition going on between Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, and now Deshaun Watson, who's coming back finally into the league where they spent a ton of money on. We're going to see those 3 guys compete for the starting position. But Jerry Jeudy is a very good possession guy. We saw him have some deep plays down the field. And yeah, so it's just one of those things where, it really depends on the quarterback play. I put Jakobi Meyers in the chain movers underneath BTJ because yes, last season we saw Jakobi Meyers kind of get traded. We saw him get traded from the Raiders to the Jaguars. Had a very good red zone percentage. He was a guy that Trevor Lawrence trusted very early. I have a feeling that it's probably going to be the same way, but Brian Thomas Jr. sits up in my tier 3 because the injury really affected him, and we saw a massive decline from rookie year to last year. Jakobi Meyers can really solidify his number 1 status, but the Jaguars have 3 really good wide receivers in Brian Thomas Jr., Travis Hunter, and Jakobi Meyers. But I put Jakobi in tier 4 because he's going to be that possession guy, and until I see a little bit more consistency out of him, especially with Trevor Lawrence kind of playing the way that he's been playing, he's a guy that has no problem taking off and running. But yeah, I put Jakobi Meyers here. I put Darnell Mooney here because Darnell Mooney is a very good wide receiver. We see him leave Atlanta. My God, I can't even think of where he went. Let me pull that up really quick. God, where did he go? Holy cow. Oh, he went to the Giants. Okay. Was gonna say the Giants, but I couldn't remember if he went there or not. But Darnell Mooney as a Giant, sitting behind Neighbors, obviously. He's a good possession guy. He's gonna get you a first down here or there. He has big playability, but he's not a guy that can really take over an offense. He's got a pretty low floor, in my opinion. Another guy I have here, Khalil Shakir, the Buffalo Bills. He's definitely their slot guy. He's definitely their number 2 behind DJ Moore. It's the Josh Allen offense. Khalil Shakir has fantastic route running ability. He's a guy that I can rely heavily on to get you a first down, to be able to move the chains, which is why I have him in the chain movers category in tier 4. Jalen Naylor, we saw him have a really good season in Minnesota. He goes over to the Raiders. Excuse me. He kind of really has a stranglehold on the number 1 wide receiver position, especially with Fernando Mendoza coming in, probably taking first team reps there. I have Keenan Allen, Cooper Kupp, Rashid Shaheed, Wan'Dale Robinson, Michael Wilson, the last guys that I want to talk about. Keenan Allen is an aging wide receiver, but he's one of the best in the league at third down conversions. He's a guy that I have no problem putting in tier 4 because his floor is kind of high. And the reason why it's high is because the Chargers are going to be they're going to be third down a lot. And if he decides to resign there, he's a guy that I have the utmost confidence in to get me a first down. Cooper Kupp and Rashid Shaheed, both Seahawks receivers. Shaheed plays a role differently than Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp we saw him take the Triple Crown in LA with Matt Stafford, but he kind of has a secondary role behind JSN. He's a very good third down receiver. I can guarantee you that he's going to get you a first down time or two. Rashid Shaheed is a big, speedy guy, big play threat. He'll either, he's going to be another one of those guys that's, 3 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown maybe. But he also plays a role in the return game. He's very explosive. Obviously, we saw him win a Super Bowl with the Seahawks last year, and Cooper Kupp the same thing. Both of those guys can really be chain movers in the tier 4 category. Wan'Dale Robinson, we saw him come down from New York to join the Titans. He's going to be the number 2 guy behind Calvin Ridley, with Cardinal Tate, who they drafted in strong consideration for that role. Wan'Dale Robinson played very, very well in New York. Very underrated wide receiver. He comes down with Brian Daboll, who is now the offensive coordinator there. It's just one of those things where this could go either way. He's either going to be a big play guy, he's going to be a possession guy. You still have Calvin Ridley there. He's going to be their number 1 wide receiver as long as he can stay on the field. Wan'Dale Robinson is going to be the guy that spells him and kind of give him a little bit of a break, and he's absolutely good for a first down throughout the game. Last guy, Michael Wilson, we saw an uptick in targets with him with the quarterback change that they made from Kyler Murray to Jacoby Brissett. We saw the Cardinals kind of re-sign him. They moved on from Kyler Murray. Michael Wilson's a very good number 2 behind Marvin Harrison Jr., who I had in my tier 3. And those are my tier 4 guys. My tier 5 guys are my leverage receivers. I know we're getting kind of long in the episode here, but the tiers, this is something that doesn't take, I can't do this very quickly, but my tier 5, my leverage receivers, these are my guys that are an injury away from being fantastic and from being great, but they're still going to contribute on the field. Ricky Pearsall, Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims, Hollywood Brown, Parker Washington, Tez Johnson, and I have Deebo Samuel in my leverage guy. But I'm going to start with Ricky Pearsall because Ricky Pearsall has gone through some adversity in his career so far. We saw him take a bullet, miss a couple games, come back, play very well. Now that they don't have Jawan Jennings, still up in the air about Brandon Ayuk, who may or may not play this season. They bring in Mike Evans, but Ricky Pearsall is a very good possession guy, and he's one injury away from being the number one wide receiver in San Francisco. Troy Franklin and Marvin Mims. Now their situation is a little crazy because they bring in Jalen Waddle. They still have Cortland Sutton, but we saw these two guys kind of really show some really good flashes on the Broncos offense. But the Broncos offense as a whole is very inconsistent. Either Bo Nix is throwing 5 touchdowns or he's throwing 5 interceptions. But for the most part, Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, these guys are one injury away from being a very, very big part of the Broncos offense. I can see it going either way. Hollywood Brown, I have in my leverage guys because he goes over to the Eagles from the Chiefs. And again, we're speculating a AJ Brown trade. Now, if that AJ Brown trade comes to fruition post June 1st or whatever the timeline may be, we're going to see Hollywood Brown be the number 2 receiver on a Philadelphia Eagles offense behind Devonta Smith. And I put Devonta Smith in my leverage receivers as well. Actually, where did I put him? Hold on. Probably should be in the leverage guys, but I think I put him in tier 3. Actually don't even have him on my list, but I'm gonna place him right here in my leverage guys. He's probably a tier 3, tier 4 guy. But I'm going to put him in tier 5 as my leverage guys because, again, we're speculating a AJ Brown trade, and Devonta Smith is a very good wide receiver. He's a very good possession guy. He can run the routes. He can be a deep threat, but he sits behind AJ Brown in a very, very run-heavy offense behind Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. So he's kind of lost by the wayside there. And of course, he's one AJ Brown trade away from being the number 1 wide receiver. And Hollywood Brown is one AJ Brown trade away from being the number 2 receiver. So these are my 2 leverage guys from the Eagles. I also have Parker Washington on here. He's the Jaguars receiver. We saw him dominate the red zone with Trevor Lawrence playing very, very well last season. Parker Washington, now with Jacoby Myers and Travis Hunter coming back and BTJ being healthy, he sits at probably the number 4 wide receiver spot on the Jaguars. But again, the leverage receivers, these are guys that are just one injury away, one suspension away, whatever the case may be, to being absolutely great on their respective offenses. Tez Johnson, we saw have a really big, deep play ability that we saw. Him and Baker Mayfield have a really good rapport together. I know that they drafted like Jalen McMillan the year before, but we kind of saw him kind of lose traction. Now with Mike Evans gone and Egbuka taking over the number 1, they still have Chris Godwin as their number 2. Tez Johnson fits into my leverage receiver guy. My leverage receiver tier because, let's face it, any of those guys get injured. Parker Washington is that guy. Tez Johnson is that guy. Deebo Samuel doesn't even have a team. And the reason I put him in my leverage guys is because Deebo Samuel is a jack of all trades. He can catch the ball, he runs great routes, but he can also run out of the backfield. So there's an injury out there waiting to happen that Deebo Samuel is going to sign with the team and be that. So these leverage receivers, Ricky Pearsall, Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims, Hollywood Brown, Parker Washington, Ted Johnson, Deebo Samuel, they're all just, kind of biding their time and waiting for their opportunity to be great. The last tier that I have on the wide receiver tier list is my tier 6, my ascending routes. These are the guys that, again, they showed flashes. They might be rookies. They're probably rookies, but they could really, really take control of an offense and just be the number one target for their quarterback. I have Cedric Tillman on here. I have Denzel Boston and KC Concepcion. The reason I have these three guys on here, yes, I know they're all Browns receivers. Boston and Concepcion are rookies. Cedric Tillman, we saw have a really, really good season with the Browns. And it's just one of those things where whoever the quarterback is, they're going to have to look to one of these guys. Boston and Concepcion are going to be fighting for a position on the team. We know that Jerry Jeudy's their starter. We know that Cedric Tillman is their number 2 probably. But Cedric Tillman had some really good weeks in fantasy last year. So we're going to see those guys compete. And I know it's the Browns, and I can't really say too much good about the Browns right now. But those three guys are ascending routes. They're on the up and up. They're just going to keep going up in the rankings and up in the status of their respective team. I also have Carnell Tate on here, who I mentioned before. Is Carnell Tate's wide receiver out of Ohio State, where the Titans drafted him 4th overall. This guy could really come in and be the number 2 behind Calvin Ridley. I know they have DK and Io Manor, who showed flashes, but Carnell Tate is a generational talent out of Ohio State that he can just really be an outlet for Cam Ward. I also have Matthew Golden on here, who I mentioned before. Matthew Golden in a young core wide receiver group of the Green Bay Packers. We saw him kind of show some flashes as well. Now that we saw the Packers lose Dontavian Wicks and Romeo Doubs. So Matthew Golden's time to shine is now. Oh my God, I did it again. I muted myself by accident. So I'm just going to kind of repeat what I went through with Carnell Tate. Sorry if you heard it already. Carnell Tate is fantastic talent out of Ohio State. I know that the Titans have DK and Io Manor, who played very, very well last year. But Carnell Tate has the ability to be kind of an outlet and a really good wide receiver for Cam Ward to throw to. Matthew Golden is a guy that is a very young wide receiver in a very young group of wide receivers in Green Bay. And he saw some flashes, but we saw the Green Bay Packers lose Romeo Doubs and Dontavian Wicks, where Matthew Golden can really step up and be a focal point of a young offensive group. And that's an offensive group that's very young overall, with Jordan Love, Christian Watson, oh my God, Christian Watson and Jaden Reed. Jesus. Matthew Golden can really solidify his place in that offense. I combo Keon Coleman and Skylar Bell on the Bills offense. Keon Coleman's a guy that maybe hasn't panned out according to Bills fans. We see some discipline issues where he's missing meetings, but really this year he can kind of step up and be a really, really solid, reliable target for Josh Allen. Skylar Bell is a very good wide receiver that the Bills could really use. I think it was a very underrated pick by Brandon Beane, but the Bills there have some really good wide receivers for Josh Allen to throw to. Now, I know I'm no expert. I know that I may or may not have missed a lot of wide receivers on this list. So if you have made it to the end of this and you're still listening, when this video goes live, please comment, like, the whole 9, subscribe. Let me know who I forgot. Let me know where you would rank them, what tier you would put them in, and tell me why. I'd love to hear from you guys. But that is another edition of the Front Office Podcast. We did our wide receiver tiers. Next episode is going to be the tight end tier. We're going to save the quarterbacks for last, but we're going to go tight ends, and that will be in a couple days. We're going to go live again, and we're going to tackle the tight ends. The tight ends tier list probably won't be as long. I know there's not that many tight ends that are really reliable in the league. I know there's a ton more receivers that I left off of this list as I did with the running backs as well. But yeah, like I said, if you made it this far, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know who I forgot, where you would put them on my list. I am your host, Pistols. Thank you for joining me for the Front Office Podcast, and we will catch you on the next episode. Take care, guys.